So I know that this video is coming much later than it normally does, but I was traveling. I was doing the casting for the We Play Artifact tournament, and I was out of the country, so I was unable to make a video when this card was released. And I don't want to miss a card when it comes to these monthly releases, so yes, this is late, but we're going to talk about the monthly reward card from November. So the monthly reward card was Frenzied Alit. This is a 1-cost strength creature. It's a 1/3, and its text reads that when it takes damage, it gains +1/+0. So things to note about this card. First and foremost, this card is an animal, right? It's a reptile, so it can play into certain animal, or if you really want to get cheeky, like Alit tribal decks or strategies. If you really want to do that, like maybe you want to take Animal Monk and play it in Halalu, so you jam in some Alits, this would work for that. But in terms of like just general use for this card, because I've had a lot of time to think about it since it was revealed and released, obviously, this card is okay. Like, it's not bad, but the thing you have to understand about 1-drops, 1-cost cards in general in the Elder Scrolls Legends, specifically creatures, is that most of them just are not very powerful, and that's by design, because you don't want super powerful cards to hit the board on turn 1 and start the snowball process. But they're typically so far behind in power level when compared to 2 and 3 drops that most of them don't warrant being run. Now, the 1-drops that do usually see play are ones that provide some additional value, and they're what I call enablers, right? So Relentless Raiders, for example, is another strength creature that is a 1-cost creature, and it's an enabler for a couple of different decks. It is an enabler in combo decks like Wisp Raiders and so on and so forth, and in aggressive decks it's an enabler in that you can play it the turn you're about to break 1 or 2 runes and get some additional burst damage. So it does something beyond the body. Crown Quartermaster is another good example of this. Crown Quartermaster, 2/1 body, but you get the dagger, and that's really important for a number of reasons. Most intelligence decks are running a lot of ward creatures. Being able to equip a dagger on a ward creature, because they're usually understated as a result of the ward, is very powerful. It's also run in Daggeth decks because taking something from 4 to 5 power is typically really important. Putting that dagger on an Ash Berserker, kind of a big deal. Even if you draw it late, again, much like Relentless Raiders, you can use it for just a little bit of reach if you're trying to close out a game, so that's another example of an enabler. Scouting Patrol, Marked Man, these are enablers for you to play powerful cards like Pit Lion, or even Siege Catapult, because Marked Man, you can dump both of the bodies in the lane with the catapult, and essentially you want your 1-drops to be some form of an enabler, because that reduces the negative of drawing it later in the game, and that's really what 1-drops have to kind of come up against, right? Because if it's not enabling some other strategy, if it doesn't have a synergy inherent with other cards, you're really just looking at the value of that 1-drop by itself, and you have to say, you know, is this okay if I draw this on, you know, turn 7, for example? And a lot of times the answer is no. I mean, even cards that are really powerful as far as 1-drops go, like Iliac Sorcerer, didn't see play for a long time, and Iliac is still one of those, like, you know, it's in, it's out, it's in, it's out, despite having a lot of synergy with a number of cards that are currently, you know, meta cards seeing play, Scimitar, Orc Clan Captain, so on and so forth. So Frenzied Alit, when we look at it, it has to, in my opinion, like, pass that test. Is it an enabler, or is it something I want to draw late? And unfortunately, the answer is no. Well, it does have some kind of cheeky fun effects in that, you know, it's a decent sized body. You know, a 1/3 is what Mudcrab Merchant used to be, and it carried a Scimitar very well. So you might say to yourself, hey, Frenzied Alit is a 1/3. Maybe it carries a Scimitar well. Well, Mudcrab Merchant also drew you a card, and it gave you card quality choice because it showed you 2 and you got to pick one. So not quite the same. Mudcrab Merchant is still a decent draw on turn 6, on turn 7, because of that card draw, where Frenzied Alit is not. So maybe the closest that I can think of in terms of like straight comparisons for value would be Frenzied Alit against Deepwood Trapper, That's another 1/3 for 1, but the big difference here is 1, Deepwood Trapper has a keyword, Alit does not. Deepwood Trapper also has additional text on it, which kind of makes up for the text that the Alit has, and it's an agility card, which is the main reason that Hlaalu runs it, because it's another easy way for them to satisfy the requirements for their Oathman, which is a big deal in Hlaalu. So Frenzied Alit, while it does have the cool, like, it takes damage and gets bigger thing going for it, there are, one, just like better cards for that, better self-harm cards if that's the kind of deck that you want to run, and two, the places where this card shines are like when it's in your opening hand and you play it on turn 1, and for whatever reason your opponent plays a Barrow Stalker into it in the same lane, and then you trade even with the Barrow Stalker because you attack the Barrow Stalker, it takes 1 damage, your creature jumps to a 2/1, and then you can trade that with the Barrow. Hooray, you spent, 1 mana or 1 magicka, excuse me, to take a 2 magicka creature. Hooray, right? Like that, you celebrate. But like, 1, that's a very weird niche scenario that just feels awkward, and 2, it's just not likely going to happen very often, and your opponent isn't going to try to play into it and allow for that sort of thing. And the reality is that, like, this card is very cool thematically, and if you really want to build like a self-harm theme deck and jam all the cards in there, if you're the kind of person that, hey, I love werewolf decks and I play all the werewolves in it, or I love vampire decks and I play all the vampires, then, have at it, right? Self-harm your way to victory. But in terms of, like, just, is this powerful enough to see play? Right now, my gut feeling tells me probably not very often. I suspect that it might see play, and it might even see some success, but it'll see success as if it was just a generic 1/3, and that you could probably slot in another 1-drop and be just as successful most of the time. So, hate to be kind of a downer, because I usually like to be very excited about the monthly cards, but 1-drops, it's really hard to find playable 1-drops in Legends because of the way the power curves out on your creatures, and then taking it a step further, it's even harder to find playable 1-drops that don't result in some sort of enabling or immediate value, like, again, the Mud Crab or Marked Man or so on and so forth. So let me know what you think. Again, this video is coming out super late, so if you have been playing with this and you've had success, maybe I left out something in terms of a strategy or a synergy, let me know. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for somebody to tell me, hey, there's this really cool combo you missed, and then I will have an excuse to go play this card on the ladder. But right now, my gut is telling me it's probably just not good enough. So anyway, I'm back. Hopefully videos will come a little more regularly as I settle back into my routine. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.